In 2010, after the severe crisis, only 3 countries managed to maintain a budget surplus, and Norway was one of them. This Scandinavian country ranks among the top 5 in the world in terms of living standards and GDP per capita, with a pension fund accumulating a whopping $1.5 trillion. However, just half a century ago, it had no prospects of overcoming crisis and poverty. How did Norway transform from a country of fishermen into a nation with one of the happiest populations? So let's discover the reasons for the economic miracle of Norway. Before we start, please support my channel by clicking like and subscribe buttons. Until 1905, there was no such country as Norway on the world map. It was initially a part of Denmark and later belonged to the Swedish Union. By the end of the 19th century, Norway was a peripheral country engaged in fishing, agriculture, and timber production. However, only 4% of the land in Norway was suitable for agriculture, and soon farmers ran out of land. As a result, many families became impoverished, leading to emigration to North America. The population decreased by almost a third in the early 20th century. In the early 20th century, Norway's GDP per capita was 1/3 less than that of other countries in continental Europe. Business gradually fell into the hands of foreigners, leading to increased unemployment. European companies built hydroelectric power stations on Norwegian waterfalls. Near sources of cheap energy, factories for the production of fertilizers, zinc, and aluminum were established. By 1910, just 5 years after gaining independence, approximately half of the Norwegian industry was owned by foreign companies. The discovery of electricity and the subsequent rapid growth of energy-intensive technologies prevented the country from becoming a poor province. Moreover, in the 20th century, Norway had the world's 3rd largest maritime cargo fleet. In 1958, near the city of Groningen in the Netherlands, a large gas field was discovered, raising hopes not only for the country but also for neighboring nations. The geological structures in the North Sea region supported these hopes, as they resembled the gas-rich province of Groningen. Later, Norway asserted its rights to the adjacent maritime territories, and based on the 1958 Geneva Convention, declared sovereignty over them. However, the initiative to explore the reserves did not belong to the state, but to large transnational companies. At that time, the American oil company Phillips Petroleum Company requested exclusive rights to explore and develop deposits in the country. Nevertheless, Norway refused to grant exclusive rights and opened the shelf to all interested parties. Consequently, besides the Americans, other companies submitted their applications, and a total of 22 permits were issued. The first wells were drilled in 1966. It took more than 3 years before a profitable deposit was found. Almost all companies suspended their operations during these 3 years, but by the end of 1969, the same American Phillips Petroleum Company finally discovered oil and gas. In reality, they wanted to halt their operations due to the rental payment for the drilling rig Ocean Viking, so it was decided to drill one last well. The work began on August 21, but due to bad weather, they were forced to suspend it. Only on September 7, the drilling vessel was able to resume the exploratory drilling, and a day before Christmas at the end of December 1969, it became clear that a gigantic oil field named Ekofisk had been discovered. Full-scale oil production began in 1971. Norwegians immediately realized the significance of the oil industry and deemed it inappropriate to trust it solely to private entities. For this reason, in 1972, they established the state-owned oil company Statoil. Initially, it was legislatively mandated that the government hold a 50% stake in all oil extraction projects, allowing foreign companies to bring technology to Norway and provide logistical support. Later, it was decided that Parliament could adjust the share based on circumstances. Thus, the state ensured control in the oil and gas sector. However, the 2 oil crises of 1973 to 1974 and 1978 raised the price of oil from $3 to $34 per barrel. As a result, the industry in Norway began to develop rapidly. In the 1970s and 1980s, the country discovered and developed oil and gas fields such as Stafjord, Frigg, Oseberg, and Gullfaks, some of which are among the largest in the world. During the same period, the first pipeline was constructed, and investments in the development of the Norwegian continental shelf exceeded the revenues. Norwegian legislators continued to play an active role in the development of the oil business. The country's parliament enacted detailed rules for participants in the oil industry, with special emphasis on attracting national talent and providing opportunities for business prosperity and the growth of the population's well-being. Thus, in 2002, the oil and gas sector accounted for 23% of the GDP, contributing 32% of all revenues. By 2006, Norway supplied 15% of the entire raw material needs of EU countries. As of 2022, this Scandinavian country ranks 10th in the world for oil production, extracting 1.8 million barrels per day, with 1.5 million of them being exported. One of the most unique systems created in Norway is its pension fund, established in 1990. The first allocations took place in 1996. The fund receives surplus state revenues from the extraction, processing, and sale of hydrocarbons. The fund was created to provide the government with flexibility in tax and budgetary policies in the event of a fall in oil prices or economic downturn. It also served as a tool to address financial challenges associated with an aging population and expected declines in oil revenues. The government acts wisely. Instead of spending oil windfalls now, it invests the money for the future to ensure the current high welfare of the people, even when oil reserves are depleted. As of today, it is the largest fund in the world with assets exceeding $1 trillion. This translates to around $270,000 per citizen in Norway. However, the fund's income is generated not only from oil, but also from securities. As of 2023, the fund holds stakes in 9,228 companies across 70 countries worldwide, with its asset value reaching almost $1.5 trillion, approximately 1.5% of the global stock market. This gives Norway significant leverage in influencing the world economy. According to the forecast from the Norwegian Ministry of Finance, by 2030, the fund's size may range from $455 billion in a pessimistic scenario to $3.3 trillion in an optimistic one. In total, the fund earned $150 billion in 2021. Over the entire period of its existence, the majority of the profit came from Microsoft, totaling $78 billion. It is worth noting that as of today, the majority of the fund's assets consist of stocks, accounting for 72%, and bonds make up 25.4%. The remaining percentage is allocated to real estate, such as skyscrapers in New York or warehouse spaces in Western Europe. Since 2004, the pension fund has been managed under the supervision of a board of trustees, which, among other responsibilities, addresses ethical investment issues. According to established rules, the fund does not invest in companies that directly or indirectly contribute to killings, torture, deprivation of freedom, or other human rights violations in conflict situations or wars. Norway ranks among the leaders in various international rankings. Fourth place in GDP per capita, around $106,000 in 2022. First place in the level of well-being for retirees. Seventh place in the happiness level of the population. Third place in the best countries to live in. Norway is often considered one of the greenest countries globally. If half a century ago, Norway's GDP per capita was one-third less than that of other developed European countries, today it is almost 50% higher. The GDP reached $579 billion in 2022. Since 1989, the country has consistently maintained a positive trade balance. In 2010, Norway joined the ranks of the three countries that managed to restore their trade balance after the severe crisis of 2008. However, there are also worrisome aspects for the country's future. According to public data, Norway has depleted nearly half of its hydrocarbon reserves over the past 40 years. Extraction has already declined by 15% from the peak in 2003 to 2004, and Norwegian gas deliveries are projected to decrease by 25% by 2030. But despite the existing challenges, the impression is formed that Norway will be able to adapt to any situation and overcome even the most severe crisis. After all, in just half a century, it has transformed from a country of simple fishermen into one of the wealthiest nations in the world. That's it for today. Thanks for your time. Please do not forget to support my channel by clicking like and subscribe buttons.